Okay, guys, let's get started. My name is Juan. I'm the core unit facilitator at MakerDAO SES. That's Sustainable Ecosystem Scaling. And the facilitator, what they do in Maker is they are the point of contact between governance, which is the MKR holders or their representation, and the team, which has been appointed to do something, again, by governance. This is a bit my journey to the DAOs. I worked on different big firms doing consulting, some consulting for big clients also. Then I was fascinated by startups and scale-ups, both in Barcelona and Berlin, and I ended up in the DAO world, mainly in Maker, and that's a bit what I'll be discussing today. I'll be taking questions at the end, so if anyone wants to know about something, please let me know. So what is a DAO? I'm not a maxi, so I don't want to start a big debate about this is decentralized enough or not. There are different opinions about this in general. But basically, for those that don't know, which shouldn't be a lot of people here, but it's a decentralized autonomous organization. Decentralized usually means that there's no person to go to. There's no legal entity behind the DAO, and it's governed by a protocol. Autonomous means that teams are formed independently. They make their decisions independently, and they are mandated by the token holders or the voters. And finally, the organization part, it's a bit the joint purpose. It's the vision, the shared community, and it means that they need to report to the holders. So for me, if those aspects are there, at least present, or the intention to get there, we're getting somewhere. And again, it's not binary, it's a spectrum, so you can be trying to decentralize even more. But what really is a DAO? It's a structure that supports decentralized work, capital, and workforce. And these three pillars are quite important, so we're going to be reviewing them quite often, but it's basically people, the capital to incentivize them to finally do something, which is a vision or work or whatever we want to achieve. So at the very early stages, when we're bootstrapping a DAO, usually DAOs look a lot like this, right? So we have a core team which is being funded by a treasury. There might be some VCs outside, so we get the funds from there. They are developing a protocol. Hopefully they have some kind of product market fit, which means that they have actual users and they're solving a real problem. This protocol might or might not be controlled up to some aspect by the token holders, so they might be developing some kind of governance mechanisms, and the community pretty much helps the core team. It's like, hey, I have an idea, or maybe we should do this, but it's the core team which is actually developing and delivering on these ideas. So yeah, scaling a DAO. So what happens once that we move to the next step? And I'll tell you a bit what happened in Maker, but you might have heard that the Maker Foundation decided to dissolve last year. So a bunch of different core units popped up, which are directly funded by the protocol, which is governed by the MKR holders. And yeah, we do have real revenues. You can check them live on chain. But the vault users are funding the protocol through the stability fees. And then that funding is pretty much used for the core units to develop the protocol even more and to grow further. There's this little issue with DAOs that you need to be thinking about the final user of the protocol, but you also need to think about who your boss is. So in a hierarchical company, it's quite easy to understand who your boss is because you see the hierarchy pretty clearly. In this case, the MKR holders or any type of token holders, it's not particularly clear who they are. There are some delegates, so that helps a lot because you can at least have some conversations, get feedback, try to understand their vision or where they want the protocol to get. But that's the main issue that they have. And the delegates, when they are trying to get something done, they need relevant information, so they need to have these things ready. They need the experts to evaluate the proposal if it's technical. They need tools to evaluate if the work got done or not. They need the right incentives to vote. So in Maker, for example, you are paid to be a delegate. And they need to be able to cut through the noise. So we have this, which is a nice problem to have, I guess, but our forum is almost a full-time job, just going through it. There's a lot of content all the time, which is great. We love ideas, but at some point, that pushes the limits of any delegate or contributor. And the core units, on the other hand, they need to be, well, first of all, there's a flat hierarchy. So this means that no core unit can impose on another core unit. And this is quite important, because if you want to become a core unit for Maker, you cannot say, I'm going to build, I don't know, financial structures so that the other core units need to do this, because the other core units are, first of all, already approved. And then you cannot be mandated to do something for the other person. So what you have to do if you're a support core unit is a bit try to cater to the users, lead by example, and say, hey, we built a tool which is really, really easy to report on your finances. Can you please start using it? And then it's a bit the delegates or the MKR holders that are going to be pushing for these tools to be used. So it's not like there's a boss that comes directly and says, hey, everyone needs to do this now, unless it's the delegates and they have the voting power to vote a core unit out. Yeah, they can coordinate with other core units. This is important. It happens a little bit in a generic way. It's like in every other DAO, if someone shows up and they want to do something, usually there's some momentum and coordination happens almost organically, but it's not something simple at all. And finally, they can be redundant, and this is also important. When we need to, or sometimes we criticize organizations for not being efficient. In a DAO, this might be a little less important, as redundancy might be crucial for a DAO to survive. So this is a bit what a DAO at scale looks like. On the left, we have the centralized organization, the hierarchy, as I was talking. You have an executive team, which could be the C-suite people or the board members that are giving like more abstract directions. And then you have a bunch of middle management. And at the end, you have the execution or the people getting the actual work. So this is a little secret of the DAOs, but to replace that middle management, which serves to actually control and make sure that things are getting done, you need some core units that are focused on transparency and quality control. And this is quite important, because when they propose things like that, it seems like it's a waste of money. So it's a waste of funds. Why are we doing this? But at the end, it will be quite crucial to give MKR voters or the delegates a view on what's happening across the DAO. So there are different frameworks or different tools that they can build for core units to either self-report or say they are doing what they're doing. Another example could be the engineering teams are actually documenting their code. So there's a bunch of different things that can be done from the DAO perspective to ensure that this middle management layer that disappeared has actually a way of still giving the value, providing the value that they were doing. So to recap a bit, sustainable ecosystem scaling, that's my core unit. And what we do is that we're helping MakerDAO to remove barriers between decentralized work, capital, and workforce. Again, these are the three pillars that I was mentioning, and they're quite important. And today I'm going to talk about three different challenges related to those three pillars. So the first one, you probably all suffered it, is getting talent. So it's getting the people, attracting them, making sure that there's a good culture. How do you lower the entry barriers for new teams? How do you reduce the opportunity costs? The second one, it has to do with the capital. So what challenge should be tackled next? Towards where should we grow as a protocol? How can I help Maker grow? What are the related costs? So those are other challenges that we've been facing. And finally, managing the work. As I was mentioning, how do we make sure that the work gets done? And most importantly, how do we coordinate people over the Dunbar number? And for those that don't know, up to 150 people, we're all supposed to be very natural and coordinated as humans. After 150, it becomes much more complicated. So we've been trying a couple of things. The first one is to set or improve frameworks that we already have. The second one is an incubation program, and the third one is applied research grants. And I mean applied research because they're very, very concrete in nature. So it's not like some crazy PhD grant. So that's what we're going to explore now. So on the frameworks, right before the foundation dissolved, I contributed to the MIP framework by giving a bit of feedback, and especially to the core unit framework, which, as you have guessed, it's the vision for a core unit, the funding or the budget, and finally the facilitator, which is the person responsible. But yeah, we have I think around 70 MIPs by now. This is not new to Maker. There's 100 protocols that have the same thing. Ethereum, Python, I don't know. And yeah, this is permissionless, so anyone could come and propose any MIP in the forum, and they would receive feedback, eventually get voted, and it could become the law, right? Our governance process, it has two components, the off-chain part and the on-chain part. The off-chain is very, very public. With public, I mean open, so anyone can come. You don't need MKR to participate. You can comment, you can give feedback, you can propose your own. And the on-chain is very much dictated by the token holders, the MKR holders, and especially the delegates. So that's a bit what we're doing. And it's delegated plutocracy, which means that if you have more tokens, or if a delegate has more tokens, he has more, they have more voting power. So on the MIPS framework, if you people are building something similar to govern your DAO, things that could have gone better from on this aspect. Well, first of all, the core units, we didn't plan much for an offboarding process. So when the community wants to offboard a core unit or fire a core unit, it didn't look very pretty for us. I mean, firing someone is never pretty, but it was quite dramatic, very public. So maybe thinking about how would that work as well. The second one is quite important, is better templates. So the templates that we did were quite generic and very, let's see what happens and how people use them. Right now we're working on improving them, but it will be good to direct contributors to give you the information that you need or that MKR holders need to actually judge the proposals. Then maybe include performance metrics, include a roadmap, include a plan, so that those are things that right now might or might not be there, and then the community might give feedback like, can you please include this? But it's not in the template, so that will be my key takeaway. And then we have the collateral onboarding, so this MIP set is, well, we also use the MIP framework to onboard collateral. So at the very beginning, we didn't think about offboarding processes, and we also didn't think much about the off-chain assets, so that's real-world assets. So those are things that we could have, yeah. I mean, in hindsight, it's quite easy, but we could have worked better on them. The second thing that, well, second thing that we tried is the incubation program. This is quite exciting for me. It was run by SES for the last almost year now. And yeah, why incubate? There are many, many reasons. So usually contributors don't know how to set up a core unit, what they should work on, what challenges we're facing, how they can contribute, how Maker works. So all these things are challenges and are barriers to entry that you do not necessarily need to impose on people that are interested in helping. So yeah, that's our governance process as I was explaining it, and a rough timeline. So basically a timeline without incubation for anyone wanting to form a new core unit for Maker would almost mean 3 months of the team going potentially without compensation for any of the work that they're being done to become a team. So that's why we decided to test the incubation program. The goal was to reduce this, provide them with education, capital, and support, and to make sure that they successfully got onboarded by the MKR holders to as a core unit, as an independent core unit. And this is quite important. It's not our core unit that decides if they're going on or not. It's really the token holders. So that's in one case, for example, we did not manage to incubate them. The token holders said that that it was not that's not what they were looking for. So lessons learned from the incubation program. If you ever decide to run your own for your DAO, focus a lot on the facilitator. In some cases, we started with teams, and then leadership is not clear. There's not a lot of accountability, and it becomes quite chaotic. So make sure that they're almost an entrepreneur and someone very self-starter, because they will need to show the value to the MKR holders, or well, in your case, the token holders. They will need to recruit people to get help. They will need to do a bunch of admin work that they might not like. So someone that either started something or they worked in startups might have a good profile for that. Another thing is to focus a lot on minimum viable operations. So when you tell someone how much budget do you think you need, they will think big and they will explode the budget, which is great. But the governance might not like that. So the token holders might be like, that's a bit too much. We don't know these people. We don't know if they're capable. So try to start thinking on minimum viable operations, and then they can scale. So you can say, we are going to work on this problem. When eventually we prove that we're our worth, we can scale it up and go even further. And the final one, our incubation program was 5 to 8 months, more or less. And the community feedback, we got it quite late, almost at the time of the votes. So my advice would be try to get community feedback before, so you can adapt if necessary. It doesn't need to be binary at the end, yes, no, but you can adjust the path a lot more if that's what you're looking for in a successful incubation program. And the last topic that I wanted to talk, it's the grants program, which is it's quite. Yeah, I really enjoyed this as well. We didn't have a lot of structure, but this is a bit how it worked, right? So again, we have the 3 pillars: the idea, the funding that was provided by us, and the individual who was someone that actually wanted to achieve this. And then, yeah, hopefully the grant was a success. So again, important things about these specific grant programs, it was not based on bounties, so it was not very, very well defined, and I think that was a feature in our case. It was very much discretionary, so we could decide to whom award it and how, but it had to align with our vision, right? So if someone said, hey, I want to build a portal about that, if that for us was not going to scale Maker, then we would reject it and tell them to go get the funding in some other core unit. And finally, we are the ones, as a core unit, being evaluated based on the output of the grant. So that's why we had to keep a close eye on the program. So lessons learned on the grants program. First of all, focus on the long term. I think that getting someone good in the ecosystem that's interested is almost much more important than the scope. So the scope can be a little bit blurry in the beginning. Just make sure that you're betting on the right person more than the right idea. You don't need to over-define that. That takes a lot of time and effort, and that might make things harder. The other one is pick your words. The grant is the means, it's not the end. And as I was saying before, if it doesn't align with your vision or what you are trying to achieve, it might not be worth pursuing it. You're not there to run a grants program. You're there to achieve a vision, so you should focus on that. And the last one, well, I already mentioned it, but it's keep it loose and check in often. So ideally, even once a week is not, if that's good, and it doesn't need to be with you, it could be someone with your team, but having like a regular meeting where you can discuss how things are going, they can tell you, hey, I'm having a hard time finding this information, so you can maybe help them. So I think that that's something that's quite good in this context. So yeah, those are the learnings. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Thanks. Yeah, I just had two quick questions, if you don't mind. One was, how do you ensure accountability within the DAO, that these grants or contributors are actually meeting their goals? What methodologies have you actually put in place for that? What mechanics? And the second is, how are you reducing the noise that you mentioned that's trickling down from the community, potentially, or the token holders to those core units? What methodologies do you have to filter that noise?
Thank you. So for the, what was the first one?
First one was accountability.
Oh yeah, so accountability, I think that depends a lot on the DAO. Right now in general, what I see in different DAOs is that you have a lot more funds than talent. So you might take riskier bets, meaning that you can allow for someone to scam you or not work for a couple weeks. But in the example of the grant, if you're checking in every single week and you can see the progress, you can see if it's going on track or not. And again, because we are being judged as grantors, I don't want to have a grant that didn't go well. So I would cut that beforehand. Second thing, super important, is to set the expectations right. So again, that's something that maybe it's clear for one, but it's not, and it takes some time to get it right. And finally, as I was saying in the beginning, I think that there are some groups that could focus on developing either tools or mechanisms for everyone to report. And if everyone is following a best practice, and it's quite easy to do, and your team is not, then the token holders might come and ask you, why are you not doing it if it's so easy? Why are you not being as transparent as we would like to? So I think that's on the accountability part. And the second one
was in relation to the noise that can often come trickling down through token holders, community, and how you protect, or how you what you set up for your core units to succeed.
I think that's a tougher one, or we haven't solved it yet. What we do have is some core units that are trying to produce summaries. For example, we have a group doing a forum at a glance every week. So they would release, hey, these are so you can get like almost an email that's like a summary of important things, and then you can dive deeper. The issue is that you are introducing a bias, right? Like maybe some issue that was actually important for you is not there, so you're missing it. So I don't think we have solved the noise yet. Again, I think that the important things need to be tackled almost by professionals. So yeah, right now we're trying to get people to join our transparency and quality control track, and to be able to produce frameworks, to produce reports, and to show the MKR holders, this is what's happening with the DAO, this is an overview of the DAO, ideally in some dashboard. So we do have a couple of really good dashboards, but not for that yet. So we're building that as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thanks. Oh, just if you're like a centralized type organization, kind of like a more traditional one, and you want to kind of, or you aspire to kind of transition into a DAO type model, how quickly should that occur? And like, what are the hallmarks of things going the right way? And what are like milestones that are kind of like emblematic of things going the wrong way with regards to transitioning from the centralized organization model to a DAO model?
So one of the things that a DAO is not a corporation on chain. I would find it quite hard to decentralize a company that was born centralized. That said, I do think that it's possible to be born centralized with the idea of being decentralized at some point. So you start preparing quite early. And there's a lot of things that you can start doing from the tokenomics part. How are you going to compensate contributors? Yeah, for me, one of the pillars, and again, we can go back to the 3 pillars, but you need to have a community that is going to take it up whenever you leave it running. The second one is that you have some kind of product market fit, ideally that can sustain that full community. and if you have even more, then even better. And yeah, the last one is the product, which is the vision realized. Ideally, you have some kind of draft of what's happening, and for me, those would be quite important hallmarks to hit before actually turning off the whole foundation parts. Otherwise, I see it quite complicated to manage something in a decentralized way. Thanks.
In your opinion, what are the strong signals to qualify this is a good DAO, a good performing DAO to join, or like this DAO is not doing well and maybe I shouldn't join it? Does that make sense?
Like which token should you buy?
I'm just asking on criteria and in general, like, you know.
Like what's a good DAO to join?
In general, like how I would know this DAO is promising and like there is sustainability, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
You know, I know a lot of DAOs, they are not there anymore, 1 year ago. So how can I early know these signals, if that makes sense?
What I personally look for is first if I align with the vision, and it doesn't need to be save the world or the oceans. It can be something like I like the product and I like the way they are approaching it. For me, the team is super important. So I will try to have a couple of conversations. If they're friendly and if they are smart, I think that's another good sign. And then another one that I would look at is the sustainability part and making sure that they are getting some kind of revenues, or at least that you say, okay, they are based from a foundation still because they haven't found product market fit, but they should have a runway for, and sometimes the wallet is on chain, so you can even check this is the amount that they're spending, so even if they double it, it should last for the next 2-3 years, so it might be a good bet to join. So I would look on those things, but it's very personal, and I think that's a bit the beauty of it, that anyone can almost work on the DAO that they want. And yeah, by the way, almost everyone probably knows it, but I think that the price of admission is wanting to be there, right? So when I interview someone, I'm almost trying to show them all the bad things, and if at the end of the interview they're still like, okay, I really want to join, then I know that I have someone. But if I need to go out and convince someone, I think that the hurdles and the fact that everything's so new, it's quite challenging in general for anyone. So that makes it harder. So I tried almost to dissuade them to join, even if I would like to do otherwise.
Thank you. Anything else? Because I've got questions of my own.
Shoot.
Yes, so I want to know, what are the numbers? So how many core units do you have? How many did you fire? And how many did you onboard through the process?
Thank God that I put my slide. This is a snapshot from last quarter. So yeah, SES is right there. Maybe the mapping is not perfect, but sometimes it's hard to group them in kind of groups. So the ones on the bottom right are the ones that graduated from the incubation program. The one on the bottom left is the one that was off-boarded. And yeah, those are a bit the actual numbers.
So it's the only one that's crossed, yeah?
Yes.
And no more were off-boarded?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
I see. And do you try to off-board people and not teams in general?
No, that's a hard one, right? Because the DAO has an agreement, an on-chain agreement with the core unit and its facilitator. So it's up to the facilitator to get to that vision and make sure that they're delivering on what they promised. But we had, for example, a challenge when this core unit was aborted. There was one contributor that said I didn't get paid by this core unit. They rugged me. So it's like, okay, should the DAO be responsible for that or not? Because the DAO doesn't have an agreement with the contributor. So it's a bit up to the contributor. But then you might be losing face. You might be losing reputation. So those are things that you need to balance. And again, if you're ever building a framework, try to think about that and make it quite explicit, because you'll be surprised to the length that people go to not follow things.
Okay. And one more question is regarding the remuneration. So how is it structured? What is the fixed price, and how many, like, do you pay in stables? Do you pay in your own token? How does it work?
So right now, you could potentially, so when you're proposing your MIP set, you propose the MIP for the vision, you propose the MIP for the budget, and the one for the facilitator. The one for the budget could be more than one, actually, and you could actually split it. So for example, you could say, okay, I need this MIP approved, and usually it's in DAO, which is the operational wallet, and this is how much I need to keep my team running. Then you have the MKR compensation, which is a bit like the token from the protocol. I would say most core units have that as well. And so that's a bit like a bonus, and you have vesting, and we're following those things. That's another interesting one for frameworks if you guys want to discuss later. And what some teams do is that they propose an additional budget. So it's like, I would also like to do this project. If you want me to do it, then I would need this extra amount. It could be in DAO, it could be in MKR. And if it gets approved, then it's a bit of a green light to go on and do that.
Okay, thank you very much. So it seems that we are done. Thanks a lot for your presentation.
Thank you.
For anyone who is building a DAO, it's definitely valuable. We are a DAO as well, so yeah, we have to learn.